Welcome. Today, we are diving into a spiritual movement that has quietly influenced millions of people. It's called New Thought, and we're going to explore it through the lens of one of its most practical, down-to-earth teachers, a guy named Emmet Fox. All right, let's jump right in. We're going to start with a problem that I think pretty much all of us have felt at some point, that feeling of being stuck, tied to a past hurt or maybe a person you just can't seem to shake. Well, Emmett Fox had this really powerful way of describing what's actually going on here. So, Fox's point is that when you resent someone, you're not really hurting them. You're actually binding yourself to them. You're forging this mental chain and attaching yourself to the very thing you want to get away from. Just let that sink in for a second. I mean, that's a pretty intense question, isn't it? It kind of forces you to look in the mirror and ask, am I choosing to live like this, chained to all this old baggage? And where Fox takes this idea next is even more startling. Get this. According to Fox, this isn't just a passive thing. He's saying that whatever you focus your energy on, you literally draw towards you. So by holding on to all that resentment, you are pretty much guaranteeing that the person or the problem you desperately want to escape is going to keep showing up, over and over again. So, okay, if we're trapped by this chain, how in the world do we break free? Well, Fox didn't just point out the problem, he offered a solution. It's a tool that sounds almost too simple, and he called it the golden key. And that's it? Seriously? It seems almost ridiculously simple, doesn't it? But the real genius here is in the radical shift of consciousness it requires. The whole point is to completely pull your mental energy away from the problem and point it somewhere else entirely. Now, let's be really clear here. When Fox says think about God, he isn't talking about getting into complicated theology or begging for something. In New Thought, you can think of God as this universal good or infinite intelligence. The idea is to do a practical mental exercise. You just rehearse these positive, absolute concepts like wisdom, love, truth, until your mind is so full of them that there's literally no room left for the problem. So the whole principle here is about surrender, not struggle. See, the golden key isn't about you wrestling with the problem and trying to figure it out. It's about getting your own worried, anxious, limited mind out of the way so that a higher, more perfect intelligence can take over and do the heavy lifting. Now, this whole golden key idea, it isn't just some clever life hack that Fox invented. It's actually the practical application of a much bigger spiritual philosophy, one that got its start way back in the 19th century. It's called New Thought. At its very core, New Thought is all about putting the power of the mind right at the center of our reality. The basic proposal is that our inner world, what we think, what we believe, is the direct cause of our outer world and all of our experiences. And the core beliefs are pretty straightforward, really. First, there's a single universal God or infinite intelligence. Second, that very same divine spark is inside every single one of us. And third, and this is the big one for our daily lives, our thoughts and our feelings are the things that actually manifest as our reality. And historically, this didn't just appear out of nowhere. These ideas really grew from thinkers like Phineas Quimby, who was a healer. He basically believed that if you could correct a wrong belief in someone's mind, you could cure the disease in their body. And his work went on to inspire the founders of major spiritual movements that are still around today. Okay, so with that little bit of history in mind, let's circle back to Emmet Fox. Let's see how he took these New Thought principles and applied them to another huge human problem: forgiveness. So Fox just completely flips the script on what we normally think of as forgiveness. For him, it is not about trying to force yourself to feel all warm and fuzzy about someone who hurt you. He knew that's often impossible. Instead, he saw it as a cold, calculated mental act that you perform for one reason and one reason only: to set yourself free from that mental chain we talked about. And he laid out these super clear, actionable steps. You find a quiet place, you make this formal declaration of release, you wish them well, and this part is crucial: you only do it once. You don't keep picking at the scab. You perform the mental act, and then you trust that the work has been done. And this, right here, might be the most important piece of the whole puzzle. The process starts with your intention, not your emotions. You just have to be willing to forgive. According to Fox, that feeling of peace and release, that's the result of the act. It's not something you have to cook up before you can even begin. Okay, so now let's zoom out a bit. For a big chunk of its history, New Thought really focused on changing your personal world, your health, your money, your relationships. But how does all this apply to the wider world around us? Well, the classic New Thought viewpoint is pretty simple. Since the outer world is just a reflection of our inner world, the only real way to fix the world is to fix your own consciousness. The logic is that a world full of peaceful, loving people will naturally become a peaceful, loving world. But that's definitely not the end of the story. In more recent decades, the movement has really started to evolve. You can see it in this quote from the Association for Global New Thought. It shows this huge expansion beyond a purely individual focus. And this shift is actually pretty profound. The movement is now consciously connecting that inner work, the prayer, the meditation, the forgiveness, to the outer work of social change. It's all about using those spiritual tools as the foundation for creating a more just and peaceful society for absolutely everyone. It's like a move from a personal gospel to a social one. Which leaves us with this one last big thought. If the central idea of New Thought is true, that our consciousness actually creates our reality, then maybe the same techniques Emmet Fox taught for healing a single life could hold the key to healing the world. It really makes you wonder, if every single one of us held back key, what kind of world could we unlock together?